Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to tonight's edition of Minara Business Matters, which is brought to you by the Minara Chamber of Commerce, broadcasting live on Radio Al Ansaar. Tonight's program is supposed to, my name is Ebrahim Patel. I'm standing in for our regular host, Anwar Mullah, who has gone off to the fair Cape to enjoy himself and has left us in the hot and sweltering weather of Durban. A lot has happened in the last few days across the globe. We've seen the downfall of the Assad regime in Syria and the political changes that are taking place. This has brought a great deal of economic and political uncertainty, both in the Middle East region and across the globe, and the emergence of a number of players. We will wait to see over the next coming days how this unfolds. Great news for those that are holding cryptocurrency. The Bitcoin hit 100,000 US dollars, which is a milestone for the cryptocurrency, and has led to a price surge in other alternative cryptocurrencies, and has a great deal of excitement to crypto investors. Back home in South Africa has assumed the chair of the G20 nations, and that gives us a great deal of influence over what happens amongst the G20 as we assume the chair. And for those of us that are familiar and those of us that are not familiar with the G20, it is the makeup of a number of countries across the globe forming both a political and trade bloc, which comprises a number of nations, including countries like Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Russia, the US, and the UK. And of course, it also holds two regional bodies, the European Union and the African Union. So it is a potential for a great deal of political influence that South Africa can exert at a global level. Some bad news is that we've seen the GDP weaken by 0.3% in the third quarter of 2024, and this has been mainly attributed to a slowdown in agriculture. Today, we also saw a number of friends and passengers who were stranded at the OR Tambo International Airport when there was a fuel shortage that affected a number of airlines, and so people were left stranded at OR Tambo waiting to get back to either homes or to business meetings. And I hope Ismail Dhorat, who is the CEO of Zyelabs and is our guest this evening, was not one of those passengers. Ismail, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Ibrahim? No, I wasn't one of those passengers. Shukr alhamdulillah.
Imagine that, Ismail, in an age where technology is running the world, airlines are finding that they are at the mercy of fuel shortages.
Yeah, so I think that's probably a bit of poor planning or resource planning on their side.
One would think that with all the technology at disposal, one could plan a simple thing such as fuel demand cycles way in advance.
Yep, and the thing, I think with airlines, you've got pretty predictable seasonality, right?
Yeah.
And people talk about AI and stuff like that, and sort of AI forecasting models have been very successful, especially in industries and areas where you have sort of very predictable demands, and sort of you can predict your seasons, when things are going to spike, when they're going to go low. So you would expect them to be using things like that to sort of manage their fuel and purchasing.
So Ismail, just for the benefit of our listeners and very quickly, what is Zyelabs and what does Zyelabs do?
So we've a tech company. We do data analytics, big data, and a little bit of AI. So that's the one sort of organization we've set up, and we've also recently set up a nonprofit called Tech as well.
Which is a very interesting event that took place recently, gathering all the technological and IT brains, those that are very au fait with AI, to look at technology and AI solutions for the Ummah. Tell us a little about that, Ismail.
Yeah, so we brought together quite a lot of people together. The idea, or one of the key driving factors, is we thought, if we could bring the best people together, give them a platform to connect with each other, collaborate, then we can build some solutions for the Ummah and for humanity. The sort of driving factor was, I noticed that the guys in UK and US a little bit as well, they have quite a nice mature tech ecosystem where the guys are meeting on a regular basis. And I noticed when Gaza happened, there was a lot of projects coming out from there. They were having hackathons and sort of coming up with solutions, and we didn't have a similar response in South Africa. And we saw, our humanitarian organizations in South Africa are quite sort of mature, and they're very, at the global level, they punch above their weight. But I think from a tech sort of solutions perspective, I felt that we needed to get the community together and give them a space to collaborate. So I think that's where the idea, the initiative started. And alhamdulillah, it was quite a success. We increased our numbers by almost 30%. And yeah.
So, Ismail, you raise a very important point, and that is the use of technology in humanitarian field. When we started off, we spoke about that these algorithms and AI, and you do data analytics, could have predicted the fuel shortage or the demand cycle for the airlines. But the use of technology within the humanitarian space, one would think that there's a great potential for it, because you have certain things that would be happening in different parts of the world. The NGO would need to predict its resource availability, would need to track its assets wherever they are across the globe. How are NGOs and humanitarian organizations reacting to this change in both the environment and the need to be, for want of a better phrase, on top of their game?
Yeah, so I think you raise a very valid point. So, especially with our humanitarian organizations, I think we're seeing, and, just from what I'm observing, a lot of them are going through sort of, let's call it digital transformation initiatives, where they're implementing systems and they're implementing tools to digitize their processes. So where previously, they had very manual processes, they didn't have lots of systems. They're implementing systems to manage their whatever their projects, their customer relationships, their resources, all of that. I mean, traditionally they would have had financial systems and ERP systems, but I'm seeing that the guys are thinking a lot more further. I recently met some of the guys from the Imam Development Program. So they've developed an app and they're looking at developing more apps. They've hired, someone who's specifically dedicated to digital transformation. So I think the humanitarian organizations are sort of putting the initiatives. They've realized the importance of digital technologies in driving efficiencies. And it's going to take some time. And obviously, there's various levels of organizations at different stages in their journey.
Well, one of the things that I introduced the program with was the fact that cryptocurrency is making huge advances and being seen as a central currency base. And blockchain could assist within, or cryptocurrencies could assist where regulation permits. And a number of countries are now relooking at cryptocurrency and allowing it as a form of payment. It could allow for the transfer of funds when they are needed in places where these NGOs would need to be active.
Yes, so I was speaking. We had one speaker from his family is in Gaza, but he moved to South Africa to do his master's and his PhD, and he was his talk specifically at the conference was about the challenges specifically for humanitarian organizations to get cash or things into Gaza itself, because if you think about it from a monetary perspective, our banking system and our monetary system is very centralized, right? And if you have an actor like, the United States government or, any other UK, they can start putting sanctions on a country, on a state, shut down their banking system, and then you left, out in the dark. So I think what countries are sort of realizing, and the banking system being completely disseminated in Gaza, there needs to be some sort of alternate system, and Bitcoin could potentially be that. I saw some brothers, I think they were in Malaysia, Muslim brothers, and they've launched a gold-backed cryptocurrency. So, one for one, one token is 1 gram of gold. So you purchase that, and that's banked, sort of linked directly with gold, and it makes it easy to transfer that, because you're not, if you think about a Kruger coin, it may be a bit more difficult because you're physically storing it. You've got to keep it safe. You've got to keep it in a, safe and things like that. Whereas this, you can have it electronically and you can transfer it as a, store of value.
Well, my auntie would disagree with you because she would say that she'd rather see the gold coin sitting in the shoebox under her mattress than on this esoteric currency that's sitting somewhere in the air. But that's aside. Ismail, our discussion today is on the importance of networking and collaborations. And you've laid a very important example of why networks and collaboration is crucial for both a personal and professional growth in today's interconnected world. You spoke about Ummah Tech and the bringing together of people to collaborate with an outcome. So why are these networks so crucial?
Yeah, so I think you've touched on that point. I think so we've always had sort of networks and communities, right? So if you just think about it, you live in a community, you belong to maybe sports clubs, a whole bunch of things. I think those sort of communities are becoming more and more important in today's society, and that's for a few reasons. We are being bombarded with lots of information. There's the risk of misinformation. You don't know what's accurate, what's not accurate. So if you're in a trusted community, you can more accurately interpret information correctly, based on the people, if the people around you are trusted. Then, there's a social scientist in Islamic history, Ibn Khaldun. He talks about, social cohesion and civilization. And I think these local communities and these communities of practice, let's say I'm a developer or I'm a businessman, I can belong to a community that we all aligned around values, we all have similar goals, and we can help each other to learn. So Minara is an example. It's a chamber of commerce, but all the people on there are business people. So you can ask a question, people will respond to you. If you're looking for, leads, so as an example, for the conference, we worked with another supplier who was from Minara, and she delivered quite well for all our promotional material. She delivered on time very well. So, I mean, those are the benefits of networks like that. The collaboration can help you achieve what you couldn't achieve on your own.
So it's important that you mentioned that we are in an interconnected world, but we're also in an interdependent world, right? We connected on different levels, as you point out, community, socially. We connected technologically as well, which is shaping our social interaction. We're using programs such as or apps such as WhatsApp to communicate across the globe, instantaneous communication. But we're also an interdependent world, right? As you point out, that there was you got a referral from someone as a service provider. That person has now snowballed in some other way. We're creating both an interconnected and interdependent world. We can't break ourselves off from this world, can we?
Yes. So yeah. So I think the sort of terminology being used today is called hyper-connected. So if you look at historically, we lived in very small communities, your local community and people around you where you were primarily getting information from. Nowadays, you connected to the rest of the world, so it's very hyper connected, and that comes with its dangers. As I said, there's chances of misinformation, there's chances of lots of challenges, and that's why I think sort of trusted smaller communities, whether it's virtual or physical, are really the, let's call it, future of how we're going to be successful in business and in our personal lives.
So, in the kind of business environment that we are in at the moment, where, as you point out, it's a hyper-connected world, we depend on networks, and people don't seem to take networking itself seriously. And we're not talking about computers being connected to each other, but people networking with others, where we have a strong strategy on how we exploit those networks. And I think that that's something that people don't take much cognizance of, Ismail.
Yeah, so I think, in the context of business, if you look at some of the research in the space, they say, so a lot of innovation is driven out of ecosystems of different players collaborating and coming together, and then driving value together. So you may have different people in the value chain working together towards a common good, and then they sort of create value that you wouldn't be able to create that value independently, right? And if you look at, let's call it, a lot of what they call a platform business model, like your Facebooks or your Metas and your WeChats, as an example, they provide an ecosystem where they're collaborating with other institutions that can develop on their platform, right? So that's from a technology perspective, but you even think from an organizational perspective, you could, a business could theoretically work with other businesses and say, okay, what are my gaps in terms of skills? What are my, sort of capabilities, and who can I partner with in order to create value for my customers? So in my context, in my business, a lot of the work we do with other businesses as well. And we provide services with them, and they'll do some part and we do some part. We recently just finished up a project. So there's another company who does this sort of strategy part, and we do some of the technical work in collaboration with them.
Look, John Gowrie's play 6 Degrees of Separation, where he coined the phrase that one could be 6 or fewer social connections away from each other. So if you wanted to meet the President of the United States, it would take you 6 handshakes to reach out to the President of any country, for instance. But that has changed, right? In a hyper-connected world, I'm certain that we are only 2 degrees away from that connection that we want.
Yeah, so potentially, depending on how big your LinkedIn network is and things like that. To give you sort of a idea of this, I'm part of another, other than Minara, I'm part of another business network. And we've got a WhatsApp group where, you just post a question. I'm looking for a lead to this person. And usually someone will come out and say, you know what, okay, I know this person, I can get you in contact. On the flip side, someone will say, you know what, I'm looking for someone to do X. And, sometimes it's the most archaic and random stuff, but usually you'll find somebody who knows somebody who does that. So that's the value of that. If we didn't have that network, I would be going onto Google searching, and then maybe the result is not a trusted resource, or someone hasn't worked with the person before, so I'm not sure what the quality is. Whereas this is, I'm getting a referral, and it's trusted. The person says, I've worked with this person before, and I can vouch for their work.
It's taken at the base level, that relationship that people had, which is, I know someone who knows someone who can get you what you want, into a more sophisticated realm. It's not a new concept. It's been there for some time, this networking, but it's grown and evolved with time. And so now today we are at the basis where we can connect with anyone across the world. We know someone who knows someone, and literally, if I go on to any one of the social media platforms, if I go on to X, I can communicate directly with the presidency in South Africa. And 1 degree away from communication and raise my issues that I have. And hopefully someone on the other end is listening in on my post and responds to it. And oftentimes, I've particularly found that you get good response out of some of these social media platforms.
Yeah, I think yes. So so with social media, you do have direct access to people. You can communicate directly with them. So it's sort of democratized information. I think also there's other benefits if we think about networks and communities, besides just the leads and interaction and conversation. It also, I think, assists with knowledge creation, skills development, because if you are, let's say you've got a specific area of expertise, I'll use the example of a software developer. I can go online and be part of a community that is, very highly skilled developers. If I go back, 30 years when I was growing up in my hometown, before, internet was so accessible, there were 5 or 6 other people that I knew who were into computers that I could ask questions from. Whereas today you have all that access, so you can plug into what they call communities of practice or knowledge communities that will help you increase your skills, be more effective, and just be more successful.
Well, Ismail, as the radio station needs to pay its bills and build a stronger network, we need to go for the ad break. You're listening in to Minara Business Matters as we talk to Ismail Dhorat about the value of networks. So when we come back from the ad break, we'll chat more. For some reason, the gremlins have crept into the program and created a break in transmission. So as we were chatting, Ismail, we were talking about collaboration between different individuals and different businesses. But technology, and then we're coming back to technology and social media, plays a significant role in collaboration and networking. What are the digital tools that people can leverage to enhance their networks?
Good question. So I think you mentioned social media before. So I think social media has really changed the game in terms of access to, information, access to potential collaborations, access to conversations with people, and access to, learning new things. Someone could theoretically, or they could, start posting onto something like LinkedIn, and then, let's say you interested in a specific area of expertise, and you find that most of those people are hanging out on LinkedIn. I'm just using LinkedIn as an example because it's a business social network, but sure, you could find people on Reddit as an example, or Instagram, depending on where the community is. You just go onto that platform, and then you start creating content, and you start speaking to the people or commenting, and therefore you plug into that sort of community around that interest, and that's where you learn. So some studies have looked at the massive sort of innovation that's happened in sort of dance culture, which is not applicable to Muslims, but they looked at the research, and they said one of the reasons that there was this massive, innovation in this area of interest was due to the rise of social media. Because what happens is someone tries something, they post it online, then somebody else looks at that, modifies it, and then they post it. So you have this constant learning community that develops around the social media. So someone, whatever your area of expertise is and interest, you could go online, find where those people are hanging out, and then just start interacting. And then you will find that you start to learn and you start to become better at what you do.
Interesting that you speak about a new genre of entertainment, which was sparked off by networking and collaboration, ended up as being a event at the Olympics. We won't get into that further, but the concept of networking, as much as we're living in this technology world, and you spoke about the various technology tools as well. It can be at a base level, such as the Minara Chamber of Commerce, and I'm using this as an opportunity to market the chamber, because that is a networking platform. People can collaborate with each other, attend the various events of the chamber, the coffee connection, the programs of the chamber, where they would meet either people in their particular sector or potential new customers.
Yeah, so I mean, when I started this initial talk, I mentioned Minara, and I think I'm a member of Minara. It's been immensely valuable. So I would recommend, people plug into, as an entrepreneur, if you want to plug into some of these networks, I'm on probably 3 or 4 of these different networks, specifically around business. And it's immensely valuable, so I mentioned the example, we were looking for somebody to do our promotional material. And instead of going and looking online, I remembered, somebody within the Minara community. I gave her a call and she delivered very well, extremely good quality, very quickly. We didn't have any problems. So it was a trusted, sort of referral. That was one of the benefits I got from being on that network. So I would recommend, any new business person or new entrepreneur, plug into these networks, find a mentor, and join some of these communities.
Well, thank you very much for that, Ismail. For those who want to join the Minara Chamber of Commerce, it's very simple. You can visit our website, www.minara.org.za, or send an email to kzn@minara, minara.org.za. And in the new year, inshallah, you can join and become a member of the chamber. This program, Minara Business Matters, that you are listening to, is the last program of the year, and we will be back again on the 13th of January. We wish all our listeners well over the holiday periods, where you are spending time with your family in recharging and renewing your energies for the coming year. We are getting closer to Ramadan, and so we need to renew our energies for Ramadan. Ismail, it was a pleasure talking to you. I understand that you hiked up Mount Stanley in Uganda, which is the 3rd tallest mountain in Africa. Tell us a little about that experience, Ismail.
Yeah, so it was quite tough, quite challenging. So interestingly enough, I recently attended an event in Doha called GMW, and there was a mountaineer who's done the 7 peaks. And I can relate with his experience. And one of the things he mentioned, and I also recognize that, is doing very difficult things like climbing mountains actually develops your resilience and your patience, which then translates into being a better business person. Interestingly enough, it also, I've got this theory where it develops tawakkul, which is trust in Allah. And it makes you more less risk averse, because you get to a point on a hike or climbing a mountain where you have a really dangerous situation, and at that point, when you face that situation, you read your kalimas, and then you tell yourself in your head, what, I don't have control of the outcome. If something was meant to happen to me, it will happen. And if it was not meant to happen to me, it won't. And then you just go ahead and do it. So it creates this sort of courage. And then practically, I've seen that translate into my business life. Now, I'm not saying everybody should do something like hiking, but I think the lesson there is, when you're doing something very challenging, it actually develops your resilience in other aspects of your life.
Valuable advice, Ismail. I would encourage everyone to do hiking. It builds a lot of experience and it connects you with nature. So I disagree with you that you don't encourage everyone to do hiking. I would encourage everyone to do hiking. And the more we get outdoors, the better it is for us, both spiritually and physically. And on that note, Ismail, shukran, Ismail, CEO of Zyelabs. Shukran for joining us on the Minara Business Matters this evening. And to all our listeners, shukran for listening in. Inshallah, we'll connect back with you in the new year. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.